It's nefarious, man. Like, the brain works in fucked up ways.
The mind is one of the most deceiving, manipulative pieces of equipment, flesh, human bodies on earth. I never have trusted my brain.
All of that weight lives in your head, and you are the decision maker.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
Hi, it's Ronsley. If this is your first volume, welcome. This is a weekly series where I go inside the mind of an entrepreneur, artist, athlete, academic to decipher what is the psychology of our decisions. I'm Australian, and I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians throughout Australia and recognize their continuing connection to land, waters, and community. I pay my respects to them and their cultures and to elders past, present, and emerging of the land I'm standing on today. I extend my respects to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who listen to this. So much going on. I did a little review on my reps since COVID-19 and I began isolation, coming back to Australia, March 24th, 2020, from the United States. That feels like so long ago, but for context, it has been 139 days, roughly about 38% of a whole year, which is 38% of 2020. And in those days, I have woken up and done my morning routine of a 10-minute cold plunge, hot shower, and meditation 125 times. Have done 117 yin yoga sessions, 68 runs, 454 Zoom calls or meetings, 4 no screen days, 40 published podcast episodes. There is a lot going on, and when I develop habits, I forget that they are happening, and taking stock and appreciating the journey is important. That is why highlighting the journey of an entrepreneur and what goes on inside the mind of a very successful serial one, we land up today talking with someone that has created a global brand and ranks 22 on the 2019 Australian Financial Review Young Rich List, worth $193 million. He is the founder of Finder.com and, amongst other things, likes gaming a lot. Well, a lot is kind of subjective. More than I game for sure. However, I've just started adding hours to my gaming account as a result of him. His name is Fred Schebesta.
I want to solve a problem that no one solved before. I want to create something that is a creation that I am known for. Oh, you're that guy. Yeah, you created that business, sure. But you're that guy who solved that. You made that. And I think there's just people all throughout history, and I think legacy is probably part of my real drive behind that. And I just want to be the creator of something that is unique and compelling for all of time.
Okay, Fred, how would you define entrepreneurship?
I define entrepreneurship as, and I probably never looked up the word, which probably would be a smart idea, but my interpretation of it is to create an entity that didn't exist before and now is brought into existence that becomes eventually self-sustaining. And that's to me is the ultimate version of entrepreneurship, is when you can be in the mode of being enterprising, but to create an enterprise, it must be self-sustaining and live by itself. And you can obviously contribute to that and be a part of that, but you're not the enterprise. And my version has always been that if you could remove, if I always think, if I wasn't here, what would happen? I always start from there. If I'm not in this company, what would happen? I'm like, oh, that's what would happen there. Okay, we need to change that process. And because as the founder, you always know the little tweaks and the little where the skeleton keys are, and you know where those routes that you can take that people don't. The unconscious biases that people have, and when there's not actually something which is cognitively lateral or requires a leap in thinking you can make because you've done it before, but you need to go and teach other people, or you need to smooth the road. Like how do imagine you're on an adventure and you come through to a chasm, and it's like a giant chasm, just like in that Indiana Jones movie, and that the rocks are there, the steps are there, but they're invisible, and you just go and step out to them, and other people, when you're not there, they would just go, oh, okay, we can't cross this, so what are we going to do? So the whole system stops. And I think that's the process to me of entrepreneurship, is smoothing those roads, creating those systems, those processes that happen when you're not there.
On your journey, what was the biggest leap you've made as an entrepreneur?
The big one for me personally was a judgment of myself that I was not good enough. Because I was judging myself of not being good enough, I judged everyone else as well of not being good enough. And therefore, every piece of work that they did or everything the company did, I thought was not good enough. And so you start to come across in a relatively negative tone. And if you sum that all together, you become slightly critical, and people get scared about you, and you're the one who comes in and busts up stuff continuously. And you tear things down because you're like, I know how to do that because I created that thing that you're doing, and I could probably do it better than you can as well.
Did you know entrepreneurs with previous failures increase their chance of success the next time by 20%?
I say a lot on this show, mothers are the original entrepreneurs. And when I mentioned that to Fred, Fred said this.
My mother actually taught me that as well. She said, I run the house like a business. And I was like, really? And, she had the people who came to work there, and I was like, oh, yeah, they are coming. Oh, you've got the cleaners coming in. Oh, that's true. And who manages that relationship? And then what's the system that happens on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis? When do we go on holidays? Who's going where, and what's the scheduling? I'm like, wow, it is a bit of a business. That's genius.
So a lot has changed since COVID-19 and March of 2020. And with Fred's experience in the global game of business, I kind of want to know what has changed for him.
Geographic distribution has been leveled. And we're actually, I think, the adoption curve of globalization just got fast forwarded even faster, where this is what everyone else has. That's it. That's what you get. So play from here. So now coin in. All right, let's play the game. You know what I mean? And I was like, well, actually, that's great, because geographically, I've always felt I've been at a disadvantage being in Australia. I was like, well, you don't have that personal connection. You don't get that serendipity as much. I was like thinking about that, and I was like, well, actually now the playing field just got changed, and I probably have been dealing with that issue longer than anyone else.
Okay. Do you borrow and have debt to launch your business, Fred? Because I launched my first business with debt.
I love that real tension between, let's just get a proof of concept live, prove the market, prove the possibility, and kind of hack and take on some technical debt, take on some, and then stitch that together. Versus, I have extremely high conviction in what we're doing, and I'm going to set a big bet and not launch for a period of time, and launch without much technical debt or brand debt or whatever it may be, in order to quickly scale and blitz to keep going. I've always so I've tended to stick very much closer to the just quickly get it up and borrow from the product scope and from the brand scope and from people, and I think you get this. There's a sort of a credit system where you borrow from people's motivational capital, and in the beginning you can either borrow it down heavily, or you can get people who aren't really that motivated to just execute things, right? So I always think you're borrowing from something, and it's not always, the capital is not always dollars. And I tend to borrow a lot from, those other areas, but keep the investment and the scope low. I think the reason for that, Bud, is I've always been a bootstrap entrepreneur. So I can't lean on the dollars, or I hadn't in the past been able to lean on the financial dollars to cover some of those gaps. And so that's where I've come from, and that's how I've learned. Today, inside Finder, I'm starting to learn to take bigger bets, right? So where you can let's go and actually buy the awesome software and launch with that, as opposed to let's sticky tape around this problem and we're not going to get that information, that feature, that data. It'll cost us. We'll have to go back and pay it down. Instead, we take on the actual dollars debt as opposed to the technical debt or the brand debt or the motivational debt. And I'm adjusting to that. I think big companies eventually get into a mode where they only do it one way, and that tends to be where they just borrow dollars and they throw money at things. And money is time and people and resources. Whereas I think what a lot of other companies, really ones that are growing fast, I think what they've adapted to do is this, come back to that original idea of where you borrow from people's other types and other forms of capital to get things and ideas out faster and iterate and get customer feedback. And what I think that comes back to is the competitive edge of, you can either be the first, best, or different, right? First, best, or different. And normally, I think a lot of companies are focused primarily on best. They go, all right, let's make the best thing. We've got lots of capital. We're going to throw this, and we're going to get the best agency and the best developers and the best specialists, and we're going to invest big. And these guys, we're going to launch the best product we possibly can, and we're going to delay that, blah, blah, blah. Whereas I think a lot of other entrepreneurs, where they're getting ground and is in, they play to the other ones. They play to first or different. They go, look, those customers, we're just going to completely ignore all those customers that those companies are focused on. And we're just going to focus on these ones, and we're just going to serve them really, really well. And in doing that, we're probably going to evolve some features that other customers might eventually like and enjoy and use that product. And slowly over time, you're going to board the island in that way. I've tended to work towards first and different rather than best, and therefore solving that problem from the perspective of, maybe a mild, more, draw the map on the back of a napkin. Say we're going to go to California, tell everyone it's going to take 2 weeks, pack some credit cards, don't know where we're going to stay the first night, but here we go.
When we come back, we speak with Fred about, well, the unbelievable.
Psychology of entrepreneurship.
The main objective of this audio project is to bring together entrepreneurs and creatives who share similar values so that they can find the courage to put out their authentic voice for the right people to hear, which allows for them to make their impact on the world. Every great movement started with a memorable speech. For access to full-length interviews, go to psychologyofentrepreneurship.com and click the button.
So, Fred, unbelievable. What's that all about?
Recently, I've discovered things which are, I'm going to use this word, unbelievable. And what I mean by that is there are things which are in your life that you believe but are actually potentially not true or don't align actually to who you are, but you've adopted them as your part of your beliefs, and they become unbelievable. They are like beyond belief, if that makes sense. People look at me and go, oh, you're quite a different looking person. And I go, well, I just feel like I've just manifested who I am. I'm not sure what you're exactly saying. And, that I could recently discover that I'm creative or different. And that is because that has been synthesized into my core beliefs of who I am. And now I'm excited about discovering the things which are unbelievable, that I cannot even believe about myself, and I'm excited about that.
So it's always the journey I have come to realize, the entrepreneurial journey. There is no real endpoint. But if you remember Tucker Max in volume 4, 4 times New York Times best-selling author, I asked him way back in volume 4 about why entrepreneurs do what they do, as in do the entrepreneuring.
For the most part, it's going to be about you. That's why you're doing it, right? Now, I'm not saying some people aren't driven by their mission. Some people are, but it's easy to conflate those two. And a lot of people convince themselves it's about mission when really it's about, I'm going to show daddy or whatever, right? I definitely know people who I think maybe started to fill a void, but then they kind of accomplished what they were looking for and it wasn't satisfactory. And so then how do you keep going? That's when you have to truly reach back and make it about the mission and the who you're helping, right? So that's the difference between the people who succeed once and the people who keep going. If you succeed once and stop, it's because it was only about like filling the hole, right? If you keep going, usually it's because you realize that you're never going to fill that hole with success, with anything external. That has to be internal. And then you go on that journey and then it's like, all right, I want to do what I can to help others. That's a pretty natural transition. Not everyone makes it.
Fred, you have a story?
When I was 20 years old, I had a big fight with my family. I left university and, started my company. And I said, I'm going to come back and drive my Bentley into, your front yard, and had this big fight and left and stuff, And, I'd say my first business was pretty much to prove to my parents that I can do it by myself, right? And so, it's interesting. I think we carry that around with us. But some people do, some people don't, because we're as an entrepreneur, you're kind of different. You're like, oh, my son, he's not fitting in. He's getting into trouble. And, it's just all sorts of things. And like, how can I be proud of him? And like, oh, mom, dad, you can be proud of me. I'm just discovering myself. And I need to go on that journey. And so I think after when I sold my first business, it was a small sale, about $1 million US. It's not a massive deal, but it was a big deal to me because it proved to me that, hey, I have this personal journey and I want to do things differently, and that's okay. And I'm about creation. And then I kind of reset, and, the second business, Finder, it took me on this journey where it was a much, much better business model. I think sometimes as an entrepreneur, you got to look at your business model and be absolutely brutal and know that you're a great entrepreneur. But I actually think some entrepreneurs in and of themselves are good. They just get dealt certain hands, and you play the hand you get dealt, and you do it as best you possibly can. And sometimes some people get dealt insanely good cards, and they were the right cards for them, and they go and crush it. And there's probably 11 Mark Zuckerbergs, just that Mark Zuckerberg was sitting there and he got dealt that hand, and he was in the right place, right time, and the right energy. And that's just the way it rolled, right? That's the way the hand got played out. It is what it is. The universe played it that way. And I think you could turn a lot of great businesses into what they are. But I think when you, as an entrepreneur, you measure your success by the impact you make and the creation that you create and how successful it is. And people tend to measure that from value, and they measure it from, all sorts of things. And inertly, I feel like there's this psychology around that, something about worth, I think is a big deal, right?
Fred, I've only recently started to love myself and feel worthy of the things I've accomplished, because I think I did it for the approval that I couldn't even absorb. Because even if I got the approval, I did not know how to receive it. Ever felt like that?
Where I didn't feel worthy of anything. And I think when I was probably around 2016, it's only recent, was I able to feel actually worthy for anything that I had or got or what I went and achieved, which is a kind of a interesting dynamic, right? When you go and do something that's pretty successful. And obviously I learned a lot from the first business. I made every single mistake, and I feel like in a way I was able to execute and apply this thinking, but then I didn't feel worthy of any of it. And I realized I sort of set myself this goal, like I just want to make a company that makes money. As I said, it makes it on its own. It's a creation. It stands on its own, and it's successful in and of itself without myself. And I actually created that, and then went on that journey, and I actually put myself out of a role. I had no role in the company, and then I was like, whoa! I had another crisis essentially where I was like, I'm not part of this anymore. And it was actually really dark times, probably one of my darkest times, where I had to go again and find myself, like, who am I? It came all the way back full circle to realizing, and that's when I went to the US and I started, the Business Finder in the US, where I realized I was uniquely placed to go and do that. Like, we'd had other people who were going to, do it, say they're going to do that, but I actually have something to contribute, which is something you have to go and refine. And that is, it's that creation. And that beginning of dealing with ambiguity, dealing with problems. And when I say problems, not just problems, but like physical, mental, emotional, capital, resource obstacles, like giant walls in front of you that look and feel insurmountable to 99.995% of people, and you are uniquely the only person who can go, actually, I'm going to build a ladder and get over this.
In the words of Mary Kay, founder of Mary Kay Cosmetics, don't limit yourself. Many people limit themselves to what they think they can do. You can go as far as your mind lets you. What you believe, remember, you can achieve.
I suppose this is a good time to get to know how you talk with yourself, because you, my dear listener, you've got this voice that is running the show. And the question you have to consider asking yourself is, Fred,
how committed are you to discovering who you are, so as that you can love that person? So I think that's the first thing. And the second thing that really struck me and hit me really hard, and it probably connects to this, and it's when I really started to evolve in this, is when I first heard myself. Like that, it's that voice that's in your head and it says stuff to you. And then I was like, that's just, it's always there. Then I was like, whoa, I heard that. And I was like, wow, that's intense. And the one moment that was the most intense for that was when it was my coach who said it to me. He goes, Fred, when your daughters were learning to walk? I said, yeah. He said, how did you speak to them when they fell down? I said, I coaxed them and I held them and said, hey, you fell over, hey, get back up, let's go again, it's really cool. And he said, how do you speak to yourself when you fall down? I said, well, get up, what are you doing? You're lazy, like, come on, like, get back in there. And I was like, whoa. I was scared. I was like, oh, that's a really scary person. Like, can you, and no wonder you're creating these emotions and feelings and actions and all these things that you're self-sabotaging and all these things I'm like really freaked out by. I'm like, that's from yourself inside your own head, so. And when I heard that, I was like, wow. Then I was like, I just turned it off a bit. I said, hey man, you're doing really good. And I remember this moment, I did something and something happened. I was like, man, you did a really good job there. Normally you would have done this, and I'm really proud that you went and did that. Thank you for that, and that decision you made and the journey you went on. That was awesome. And just this energy that came over me, and that self reinforcing feelings that manifested from that. I don't think I was the most aware person of myself, but I think it's something I've been, in my later 30s, I've started to adapt, and I'm just excited where it goes. I'm like, wow, think of the person, all the things that I don't know about myself, and I think we were talking about this at the start, coming all the way back. I only just discovered that I'm a creative person, and I'm like, wow, I'm a creative person. That's amazing. Now I know, like, it's like, oh, and if someone else does their creative, I'm like, oh, you're creative too? Hey, cool. Let's go and hang out. Hey, what are you creative about? What do you create? What have you created? Oh, wow. Look at your creations. Let's go and celebrate those. That's awesome.
But Fred, you've got it all. The rich list, the big company, the awards. Is it all Guns N' Roses?
I had a very low view of myself for, I'd say, first 32 years of my life, and just viewed myself in a relatively low and comparable way. And a lot of that was pretty heavy self-sabotage and just playing out those beliefs. I just never really saw myself in a very high regard in school, in university, first business. I was surprised when I would do something, when something would happen. I was like, wow, that was amazing. Who did that? Who contributed other than me to this situation that I have gotten into? Like genuinely like looking around, trying to find, well, it was clearly that person. If that didn't happen, then clearly it's really great that we're here. But hey, thank you so much to someone else other than myself. It's awesome. Really appreciate it. Thank you. So then it took a long time. And then I think, I started working with this emotional coach in 2015. It's been 5 years. And at first I was skeptical and the only reason I went to him is like, I noticed a pattern. I was like, I keep making the same mistake. That's very interesting. And it was unconscious. I'm like, that's an unconscious bias. I wasn't in control of that. Who's driving that train? I'm looking around for answers and I'm like, it's you're driving that. So you need to go and fix that. So I was like, well, you got to pattern disrupt and change that up, right? So start to learn about yourself. And
an emotional coach. What happened? And if someone listening wanted to start the first journey of entrepreneurship, what would you say?
I remember when we met, there's two things that happened. Two very important things I think that are critical. One was he asked, how committed are you to learning about yourself? How far down the rabbit hole are you willing to go? Because this ain't going to be it's not an easy journey. This is a confronting journey. This is pain. This is tears. This is joy. It all mixed together, reconciliation. And I was going through a divorce at the time as well, which is a whole other thing. And I wouldn't say that was the trigger either. It's not the divorce. It was actually, some other things I noticed. I was like, it was the pattern. I was like, that's very interesting, and the emotional. And I was like, and so I said to him, I'm prepared to go all the way. And what I mean by that, and what I think is instructive, he's always brought this up to me, 5 years later, continuously, every year he says, hey, Fred, I just remember reminding you, like when we first met, you said, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? You said all the way. And that commitment has led you to who you are and who you're growing to be. It's great to watch you change and see in that person you've become, right? But I think what I'm trying to say from that first thing is, how committed are you and prepared to, as an individual, grow to learn about yourself? It starts from there, right? So I think that's the first journey.
Psychology of entrepreneurship.
Coming up on the psychology of entrepreneurship.
Psychology of entrepreneurship.
What is it that's limiting us from crossing the floor and from learning about the others? He lived through the lifetime where he grew up with the buffalo, and by the time he was an old man, there's no more buffalo. My dad just leans over to me and goes, look at these fellas. They found bloodline.
Psychology of entrepreneurship.
I interviewed Fred because Fred Schebesta is an award-winning business leader, best known for co-founding one of the world's leading comparison websites, Finder.com. He is a serial entrepreneur, author, media commentator, mentor, and active member of the startup, crypto, and small business communities. Fred ranks 22 on the 2019 Australian Financial Review Young Rich list and has won multiple entrepreneurial awards. He is a father, an insane creator, and now a friend.
Psychology of entrepreneurship.
This is a Must Amplify production. Special thanks to every guest expert that has appeared on the show. Editing, voiceovers, and sound design by Kaylee Bunnyman and Tiago Vega. Guest research and content by Claire Gould and Corinne Castles. Project managed by Kaylee Bunnyman. Produced and hosted by me, Ronsley Vaz. For more episodes and where to listen, go to mustamplify.com/POE.
Hey, it's Kaylee from Must Amplify. I'm the sound engineer for this volume of Psychology of Entrepreneurship. I'm part of the team that made this production come alive. I work as a part of a global team with our studios based in West End, Brisbane, Australia. If you would like a podcasting checklist, email me at kaylee@amplifyagency.media. That's KAILI@amplifyagency.media. We specialize in finding your voice and making sure it's heard by the right people. If you are considering whether a podcast is a good idea for your business, check out our other show on shouldistartapodcast.com. Are you still listening? Here's a little gift to you for sticking around.
66, 8.5 hour a night. 66, 8.5. Wow. 66, 8.5. Wow. 66, 8.5 hour per night of deep sleep. I should say that again. 66 nights of deep 8.5.